Welcome to the State of Dissidents podcast. I am BC. I am your radical libertarian commentator. Today, we got a few things on the agenda. I got a little bit of catching up to do. So it seems as though the Department of Justice has been hijacked by ideologues. Regardless of what you would like to have seen come from the Derrick Chauvin case, he was convicted on all three charges. Now, we'll put that to the side because, the state didn't even prove how he died. Their narrative switched multiple times, and they still, they said it was because he leaned on his neck. It was found out by the state's own testimony that that wasn't true. He moved back and forth. And then they tried to attribute it to asphyxia and multiple other things, and they couldn't even prove how he died, but yet he was still convicted on all three charges. Now, as a radical libertarian, I'm not gonna stand here and defend a police officer as my hill to die on, but it is very important that we understand that the Department of Justice had plans in the works, regardless if he was acquitted or not, that they were going to arrest him the day he was acquitted. Okay, so this was politically motivated. So not only was the trial not relocated due to the riots and some jurors in jury having been in the area and going through riots to go home, they didn't sequester the jury. There's multiple reasons why this should be a mistrial. Okay, I'm not worried about the case itself. I'm worried about the system. The justice system itself. It has been hijacked by ideologues. We have the left cheering, oh, hooray for justice. What is justice? When a politically motivated charge is convicted, and even if he is acquitted because of reasonable doubt, innocent until proven guilty, which is what this country is supposed to base their justice on, that doesn't matter. The DOJ steps in and arrests everybody anyways. Okay, and we got the left crying, oh, hallelujah for justice. That's not justice. That is literally showing the degradation of our system. Politics plays such a large role that people just, they just want to see, as long as the system backs their ideology, it's praise the Lord, we got justice. Now, we come to find out that one of the jurors that was ended up not being selected, she has come out and testified in an interview. It's not a testify, but she came out in an interview, a public interview, and said point blank that she was terrified of what would happen should the verdict have not been correct. Okay? And then we have another juror that comes out. And he was on the jury, and he's got his own podcast, and he's been interviewed as well. And when they give you a form, and it asks if you have a bias, and were you involved with any of the rallies and such, and he said no. He lied outright. He was at a protest for George Floyd, where George Floyd's family spoke. How is that not a biased juror? How is this an unbiased peer of jury of peers? There will be, I would assume, some kind of mistrial because of all this. And then the left will raise arms and they will say the system's broken and it's all white supremacy, but none of them have the context. Nobody is watching what's actually going on. They've seen the video, they got the conviction, and then if it gets overturned, it will be mass mayhem. And as we see, the Department of Justice is just going to be politically motivated. Who cares? We'll arrest them anyways. I digress. The left has been so ideologically bent that they don't want the systems to collapse. They don't want police gone. They don't want the Department of Justice gone. They don't want the system to collapse. What they want is it to be in their favor. They want to control it. Point blank, that's it. There's no way around it. You see a bunch of uninitiated voters in a drive-by election. This is the way Tim Pool would explain it. A bunch of people were riled up for 4 years, telling them that the orange man is bad. And then it riled up enough people, and then they changed election laws and made it to where it was mass mail-in voting, and that was the push they needed. They got a bunch of people who don't care in politics, and they came out and voted against Trump. Not for Biden, but against Trump. So now we're left, the people that actually care about the system and understand the nuances and all of this stuff, we're left to foot the bill. Oh, praise the Lord for justice. Wow, the whole system is degrading. Now I'll use that to segue into Biden's America. Look at the system. For the whole past year, I have been warning about this mass amount of printing and inflation and continuing to pay people to stay at home. I have been advocating against this because I have a basic understanding of economics and how this system works. It's not okay. So first of all, let's address the fact that a large amount of Trump's failing was he was printing these checks as well. The inflation that we've seen and the before the shortages as of lately, this inflation is due to the mass printing that was done all last year. So the ideologically bent right and the Trump supporter, the avowed Trump supporters are not off the hook easy either. He overspent, and that was one of my biggest criticisms of him, other than the war machine. Okay, but the problem is the buck stops with the president. This president, Joe Biden, could have easily not came in and undone all of Trump's policies. As soon as he came in, he put a record amount of legislation and executive orders and memorandums into place to undo everything Trump did and then switch radically left. And then he comes out and says that there is no incentive for people to stay on unemployment. And that has nothing to do with the mass exodus of the workforce in our country. That is a direct correlation. I've seen it in my own job. I'm a machinist, so I work in manufacturing with steel. We cut steel in CNC machines. Okay, so even at my own shop, there is a large amount of people that are not willing to work because they got laid off due to the pandemic, and ever since then, they have just continued to collect unemployment checks. This is a direct correlation. And not to mention, we've got pipelines being shut down all over the country. You know, we've got Whitmer doing one that it goes to Ontario to get refined. That's planning on being canceled in the middle of a shortage. And, you know, it's quite infuriating because you have all these politically uninitiated people who will outright tell you they don't care about politics, but yet they go out and vote. This is the whole reason why I'm a radical libertarian, and in my philosophy, I don't agree with the democratic process. Because should you have an ideology that's strong enough and parasitic enough, you can get enough people to push your agenda. And that's exactly what we see in this country. A bunch of people who came out and were just up in arms about Trump. Got to get Trump out of there, right? And now as soon as he's gone, we got a moderate Joe Biden. And now all of those uninitiated liberals are back to sleep. And the people who actually care, who are actually footing the bill for all this, especially the people at the bottom having to work for all their things, and they don't get this free ride. And it's not free. We see this. Now we've got a cyber attack on a main pipeline in our country, and there's shortages all over when there was already inflation in steel, lumber, gas. All of these markets are going to hyperinflate. And I hear a lot of talk about, oh, well, in my state, it was just panic buying. There was no shortage. Well, there was certainly inflation. And then you've got the mainstream media lying to everybody, saying there's no lines, there's no shortages, and it pushes people to panic buy. And this exacerbates the problem. Okay, so maybe we can't draw a definite line as to what is causing the shortages, but there are shortages now. So it doesn't matter. People are going to panic buy. This is what happens. We've got a hyperinflated economy and a low amount of... We're at the point where our economy has less supply than it does demand. This is the definition of inflation. Last year, they printed almost 60% of all US dollars ever circulated in 1 year. That is why we see so many different markets inflating. And now we've got Biden, who has radically changed all the policies that kept our economy good before COVID. So now we see that it directly leads to all of this, because the inflation takes a long time in an economy as large as ours. When an economy is so vast and there's so many working parts like the United States, it takes a long time for it to come to a screeching halt. So when we see all of these radical policies and all of these shifts in our economy, it is due directly to the policy of the current president, because inflation takes a long time to actually occur. The fact that we have literally all, you can look on Twitter and all social medias, there's people posting all day long about how people just won't stand for these poor wages. Well, it's not actually the corporation's fault. They can't control what the market is supposed to decide. But our federal government has took it upon themselves to interject and say, here, we'll give you the I think it is for on average it equals $16 an hour. This is what this is what unemployment is it equals out to. And this has been extended until September now. And there's no sign that they won't extend it again, because this is exactly what they want. They want to see the system crash, because then they have their excuse to have all the power. The Democrats are realizing that regular people are waking up. The corporate narrative is propaganda, and people are realizing this. This is Biden's America. This is what happens when you just hyperinflate the economy and think you can print your way out of it. And then on top of it, we've got big tech oligarchs that just outright censor people. I have been fairly conservative in my language on my own channel here, because I'm just starting out. I have to have an organic upbringing, because YouTube ain't going to give me no help. So I am fairly conservative in my language on what I speak about. In this country, that should not be a thing. And a lot of libertarians want to have the private, it's a private corporation argument. Well, sure, you could argue that, except for every single one of these big tech companies are subsidized and have contracts with our federal government. So technically, no, it's not a private company. And not only that, they have a monopoly on discourse in this country. Back in the day, you used to stand on your soapbox and preach your gospel. Well, nowadays, we take it to social media. This is why I was inspired to do this. Was because I need a platform to get my feelings out to people. Maybe, just maybe, more people will open their eyes to what this system really is. Yes, Trump was the better option. As a libertarian, I think, a lot about Trump, good and bad. But that's not my hill to die on either. But I can tell you right now, it would be a lot better than what we see now. And, Steven Crowder, one of the most prominent conservatives in this country, on YouTube, has now 2 strikes on his main channel and 1 strike on his Crowder Bits channel. And none of it makes sense. This latest strike is due to his commentary on the Ma'Khia Bryant story, where the police officer shot the one female who was trying to stab another female. Now, as I always say, as a libertarian, there should be mad reform on police, but that is one of the only times where a police officer is justified in taking lethal action. And because Crowder spoke on this, and he's a comedian, so, he had a rather hyperbolic way of talking about it, but because of his support of the police, they gave him a strike, saying that he was glorifying somebody's death. This is absurd. They are literally hunting down conservatives, and then comes the center, and then they're coming right after the left as well. We've already seen prominent leftists being censored as well. If you stand against the establishment, you will be silenced. This is why I'm out here speaking about all of these things, because I think it's absolutely absurd that the minute somebody gains traction, they shut you down. In this country, no way. Maybe in other countries, like we see in Canada, it's a full-blown authoritarian police state right now. Look into Canada. A pastor just got arrested for bringing his people to worship. I don't care what you think about religion or how you feel about it. This pandemic is waning. The elites in this world, they don't want it to wane. They want to fearmonger. I have been exceptionally suppressed in my views on this whole pandemic. Well, I'm gonna take a risk, and I'm gonna say my piece. And should I be shadow banned or stricken from YouTube for it, so be it. I'm sick of self-censoring because of big tech oligarchs. This is how we speak our piece these days. How could I spread a libertarian philosophy without speaking on what's happening, right? Okay, so let's talk about it. First and foremost, I will say, when it comes to the vaccinations, it's undoubted. Don't listen to Fauci. Don't listen to Joe Rogan. Don't listen to anybody except for your family doctor. I mean, it's fairly simple. We see now, you can look up the article. In Ohio, they're now offering 5 different people $1 million. It's a random lottery. So now they are foregoing what somebody might take the advice from their healthcare provider or their doctor and say, oh, well, my doctor says no because of this, or that. But maybe I'll be okay. It's worth it for $1 million in this incredibly hyperinflated and diminishing dollar economy. All kinds of different corporations are pushing this narrative. Free fries and burgers and, Krispy Kreme is free donuts or something to that effect. It's absurd. Talk to your doctor. Nobody cares if you're vaccinated. Some people already have immunity because they've had the virus. So it's unnecessary to get vaccinated. This whole idea that everybody in this country needs to be vaccinated is absurd. It's no secret that big pharmaceutical companies lobby our federal government, and they are getting a payout because of all these vaccinations. So by that very nature, they want as many shots administered as they can. Now, I'm not into this whole conspiratorial, that it was all planned and all this. Extraordinary claims need extraordinary evidence. Okay, so unless you give me some absolutely concrete evidence, I can't speak on any conspiracies. But what I can tell you is that DC is in fact a swamp. Excuse me. And there's large corporations that have lobbied our federal government, and now the Democrats who claim that they're for the little guy are now literal vaccine salesmen. That was one of my biggest criticisms against Trump. He was a big pharmaceutical shill at the end of his presidency. Still to this day, he's pushing the vaccine, and that's fine. That is fine. Vaccines are a great technology. There's a lot of sicknesses that have been largely eradicated because of vaccinations. I'm not any kind of anti-vaxxer, but talk to your own doctor. Why are you relying on social media and Dr. Fauci, who hasn't practiced in 30 years or whatever the case is? It's absurd. People are so worried about what other people think or what is politically correct. And now there is literal monetary incentive to go get it, regardless of what your doctor says. This is why a lot of the mainstream conservatives are calling it the COVID regime. I won't go anywhere with my daughter unless we cannot have a mask. Because we're fine. Her age group is literally the safest age group. So the fact that she already has to go to school every single day, all day with a mask is absurd. So I'm not going to take her out in public like that, where she has to continuously keep a mask on her face. And now our gracious government, our gracious overlords had said, if you're vaccinated and you're around vaccinated people outdoors, you can take your mask off. Take a look around, people. Take a look around. This is not an experiment in the terms of a vaccine, but they are experimenting on how far they can push conformity, and that's not debatable. Half of our country is literally looking at the other half of the country in a political way, whether or not they got vaccinated, whether or not they have a mask. This has historical precedence. There has been times where people would turn on other people in their own countries because of political motivation, because of the state. This is why I so rabidly adhere to libertarian philosophy, and I believe that it needs to be individualism and not collectivism. People don't actually care about the collective. They only care about the collective of their tribe. This is why you see people chewing other people out in public for not wearing a mask when they just pulled their mask out from their pocket. Every comprehensive study that I've seen done on masks was done in a certain manner, meaning in surgical masks, not these cloth masks that everybody wears, and it's disposable. You use it once and you throw it away, but you see people taking them out of their glove boxes, off of their mirrors, out of their pockets. It's literally absurd. Talk to your doctors. This whole idea that we need to radically and fundamentally change our country because of this virus is absurd. Now, I apologize for being so forward and open and emotional, but I have been suppressed a good portion of what I wanted to say about what's going on in our country because of self-suppression. I feel like on this platform, if I speak my mind, even in a conservative way as I have, that I may get banned and then my opportunity is gone. There seems to be a want for this dialogue. There seems to be a lot of people who think maybe we don't agree on economics or healthcare or whatever, but they see this as propaganda. They see that the left has now shifted to big corporations. People just blindly adhering to, just all kinds of stuff just because they're told to. When it comes to the vaccination, talk to your doctor. When it comes to the media, do your research. Question things. It is not, it has been going on my entire life. I'm 32 years old. That the media has been a part of the establishment. They lie to folks, and it's getting worse and worse because their ratings are tanking. All of the legacy systems are failing. The money, the media, the politics, it's all failing because it cannot work this way. It cannot be based on power. Our system was supposed to be based on competence. There's only a handful of politicians in this country that are competent. It's not about left or right. It's not about Biden or Trump. It's about think for yourself. How on earth did we ever get to the point where we are accepting our marching orders from the state? Our children are being indoctrinated. People are speaking out. A whole school board in Texas just got overturned because they had to get rid of all of the critical race theorists. Political zealots are a problem in this country. This is why I'm speaking out. This is why I just adhere to my principles, and I'm not going to be biased in favor of one side or the other. Political zealotry is a problem. Politics, there's no way to avoid it anymore. It has been administered in every aspect of our life now. Whether it's our kids, our economics, our health, our own health is being administered by the state. And if you choose not to take that route, they incentivize you monetarily because they know the people at the bottom, they need it the most. Now, this next part is not financial advice. I have to say that legally. But the dollar is failing. As I stated earlier, 66 or close to 60%, it depends on which statistics you look at, but 60% minimum of all US currency ever printed in this country was done last year, and then even more this year. It's absurd. The dollar is failing. People say they don't want to take a risk when researching into altcoins and bitcoins or whatever. Let me just tell you that it's much riskier to take your cash and save it, because in a couple of months it's going to be worth a lot less. Hyperinflation is here. We now have shortages of food, gas, lumber, whatever, steel, whatever the case is. There's shortages and hyperinflation. And now a good portion of the country is starting to see it because they don't have a choice, and now they're panicking. Do your research. Economics is not a sexy subject. It's not. I understand this. But we are the global standard. Should our economy collapse and fail, not only will our country undergo a radical change and a lot of people be desolate at that point, but there is a lot of people who require our economy to be running in third world countries, supply chains that supply other countries. A lot of people will die. Shutting down the economy and locking down this country, whether you agree with it or you don't agree with it, it is having larger ramifications than the virus itself. At what point do we call, what time do we call this? When do we throw a flag and say, hold on, this ain't adding up? But yet you got people fighting over masks and vaccinations. And now, well, just don't even, they tell you, point blank period, in Ohio, there's 5 people that are going to get $1 million as a lottery just for getting the vaccination, which is incentive to not listen to your doctor. So we got political zealotry, big tech censorship, and Biden's America. I hope you guys have been listening. The few people that have been listening to me since before my podcast started, and to the people who have joined since, open your eyes. If your eyes are already open, advocate to somebody else. You don't have to agree with every word that I say. I don't expect that. This utopian idea that everybody should adhere to the same ideology is rabidly wrong. The foundation of our country was literally to espouse every idea so we could pick out the good ones. I don't expect everybody to agree with me. But I would hope that there is enough people left out there that they will open their eyes and realize that politics is coming to your front door. Whether it's economic, health, whatever the case is, you don't have a choice. You cannot keep your head down any longer. We need to start advocating for more liberty, whether you're on the left or right or you're a libertarian or whatever. We need to understand that this idea that the founders had of individual sovereignty, we need to revert back to it. We need to. This idea of collectivism and identitarianism and socialism, they've all been tried and they all failed. And now that we're heading towards that again, our country is failing again. So, I'll leave it there. I appreciate all the support. The best thing you could do to support me is to like this video, to help in the algorithms, and share. I seen a graph one about a week ago. When people share these videos, there is a massive spike in views. So if you agree, or you just want to get the message out about the propaganda in our country, or you just, whatever the case may be, by all means, please like, share, subscribe. I'll catch you on the next one.